It was 1992, a Monday afternoon, my first run as a brand new EMT. I was running with an older EMT and a driver. I remember the initial call was for a person ill. I was disappointed and relieved at the same time. We arrived at the home. I was the first to enter. The two daughters, 45 to 50 years old, greeted me at the door and said, "We're glad you're here. Mom doesn't feel well." My eyes crossed the room and saw the mother sitting in an easy chair. I called her name a few times, to no response. I took her hand and introduced myself, also to no response. I quickly checked a radial pulse. Nothing. I then checked a carotid pulse. Also nothing. I looked at the older EMT and asked him to help me move her to the floor. We have a code. We lowered her to the floor and started compressions and ventilation. I sent the driver to call a medic and get the AED. I recall the daughter saying, "You're going to break her ribs, you're hurting her." I tried to explain to them what was going on. I then directed the driver to explain what was happening. We hooked up the AED. No shock advised. We explained to the daughters that Mom's heart was not beating anymore and she wasn't breathing. We log-rolled her to a backboard and continued compressions and breathing. We started to drive to the hospital. We met a medic 5 minutes from the house. The medic climbed on board and we continued our efforts to the hospital. The medic started an IV, intubated the woman, and gave ACLS medications. We had no change in the patient. We gave a report over the radio to the hospital. We took the patient to an emergency room bed and moved the patient over. We continued CPR, no change in the patient. The doctor came in and we continued for a few minutes. Eventually, he told us to stop and pronounced our patient dead. I remember thinking on the return trip to the station, did we do everything right? Could we have done more? Should we have done more? I really don't believe anything would have changed the outcome.
So we got a call to this woman's house, and she was complaining of trouble breathing, and so we got there, loaded her up on the ambulance, and the paramedic with us, was commenting on the fact that she didn't look very good, because she was just, moaning, because she couldn't breathe, obviously. So we put her on, 15 liters, and then her O2 stats weren't getting any better. So we were putting her on a CPAP machine, and as we were tightening the last strap, she went limp. And so we checked her pulse, and there was none. So we started compression. I ventilated because I'm kind of new with this. And we got from her house to community hospital in 12 minutes, which was really impressive because it should have taken longer. And we got there, and as we were pulling into the bay, she she started coughing, so she was she had a pulse again. And then as we were getting her out of the ambulance, she went her pulse was gone, so she arrested again. And we got her in there. We got her into her room, and I think Dana said that they got her back eventually. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what she told me.
So it was the summer of 2017, and I got to go to Germany as an exchange student, which was just a crazy experience altogether. And it was the second week out of the 3, and our host students were doing testing at their school that day. So all of the American exchange students, we decided that we were all going to go to the pool together. And we'd been to the pool a couple times before, so we felt pretty comfortable with it. And so we were just playing around in the pool, playing chicken, being loud, obnoxious Americans, going down the slide 6 people at a time. And I remember thinking it was kind of weird that a lifeguard didn't say anything, but I didn't really think anything of it then. And so after a few hours of doing that, we went up to go get food, me and my 2 friends. And my friend Chloe, she went over to get her wallet, and she just stopped dead in her tracks. And I thought it was kind of weird, so I went over and I was like, "Hey, what's wrong? And she was like, oh my God, like they're pulling someone out of the water, like somebody drowned. And my heart, like, that was just a crazy feeling. My heart just sank. I felt like I was gonna throw up. I started sweating. I had no idea what to do. Like, I was 16. I had just gotten my first responder license. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm in a different country. Should I help? Like, I have a duty to act. Like, I know that I can help, but should I? Like, I've never done this before. And I was really scared because, I mean, like, there's nobody with me except my friends. So I started asking people because we all kind of gathered with each other. And I was like, oh, guys, like, what should I do? I don't know what to do. And there were some people telling me, like, don't even worry about it. Like, we're in Germany. Like, but something in me just told me, like, I can't walk away from this. Like, I can't just watch this happen and not do anything when I know that I could help. So I walked down there and I went over to a police officer and I started trying to speak to him in German. I was like, ich bin ein AMR, ich kann helfen. And he just stared at me like I was an idiot because it was a different dialect and he probably didn't really understand me. And so I just started shouting in English. I was like, hey, like, I can help. Do you want me to help? And he just moved. And he let me into this circle of people who were holding up towels around this man. And I'll spare you the details, but honestly, I don't really even remember doing compressions. Like, unless I really think about it, it just kind of blurs all out. And there were two probably like 30 or 40-year-old guys, and we were rotating until the ambulance arrived. And I remember just like completely just like blurring out everything. Like, it just felt like I wasn't even there when I was standing there. And I stood up from doing compressions and I was just standing there because I was just so shocked of what just happened. And I remember one of the EMTs handed me an IV bag and I just held it and I was so spaced out. I noticed a needle on the ground and I almost stepped on it because they were throwing things everywhere frantically trying to save this guy. And they rolled him away and I was shaking. And I remember getting about halfway up the hill back to my friends because, like, my whole group, like, they were all gathered up and they were, like, looking at me. And I just collapsed and started crying. Like, it was the craziest thing I think I've ever done. Like, man. And so everyone started hugging me and they called my teacher. And so my teacher came over and she comforted me. I called my dad because my dad's a paramedic. So I figured, I was like, oh, like, I don't really know how to deal with this. Like, I'm 16 and I just did CPR on a dead person. Like, that's crazy. And I found out the next day, my host mom, she was super helpful. She cut up fruit, she got candy, she made me, like, so much food to try and comfort me, and she kept asking me if I was okay. She was so sweet. And she talked to the police and she talked to the lifeguards, trying to figure out, like, what happened to this guy. And I haven't checked into it since then, but last I heard, he had a pulse and he had brain activity. He just wasn't breathing on his own, which, I don't know, like, that's really cool. Like, he lived. So, I don't know, like, it's crazy how I almost didn't even go on that trip to Germany and I ended up kind of saving someone's life with the help of two other people. And of course the EMTs, like, I don't know. And it really cemented to me that I wanted to continue in the career of becoming an EMT, which I am now. And I still remember the guy's face. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was a really crazy experience.